So Charlotte, thank you very much for asking us to speak this morning. My colleague Daniel Clark will be assisting me. Charlotte asked us to talk a little bit about ourselves, EM Wasylik Associates, and what we do here in the U.S. And then we're going to move into a segment of the United States where we're located. We're located in the upper Midwest, the center of the country. I have, throughout my travels and meeting with many non-Americans, we always get this attitude or opinion or view that America is a homogeneous, one big, very similar country. And the answer is we are not. We are 50 states. Each state has a distinct culture and a distinct, aura, just like every country in Europe has a different traditions and way of doing business, and that is the same here in the U.S. So what we're going to talk about is the middle of the United States, and we'll spend a few minutes. Daniel is going to make a presentation on this part of the world, how we are different than the other parts of the United States and where the opportunities are for companies here in the middle part of the U.S. And then Charlotte, because of the changing of the administration, she asked me to comment on the economic outlook for the United States in 2021 and going into 2022, and how we see the new administration versus the Trump administration. So why don't we get started right away? So who are we? We are business developers that work with emerging companies to build their business internationally. We are in our 23rd year. The company was formed by myself and my father. My father in that particular picture is 95 years old. He worked up until he was 92. And we have a whole team of researchers, business developers that actually do business, develop sales opportunities and marketing opportunities for our clients. We have an office in Santiago, Chile, and to support that, we have a whole network of talent and expertise. So if you have a medical device and you want to enter the United States, we have an expert that we work with that does FDA compliance. If you're looking at someone that has electrical machinery and is looking for UL certifications, we can work with Intertech or UL directly. So we have a whole network depending on what it is, and whether it's on the tax side. We are generalists, so our job is to build that business for our clients, but do it on a wide scale. And therefore, we build that business for our client, and we do that with international companies and U.S. companies going outside the United States and non-U.S. companies coming into the U.S., because that's our passion. Our passion is dealing on the international front. Next slide. Our team. We are a small but very highly talented team. The three individuals on the left side, Elena, David, and Michael, that's our digital marketing, and David and Michael are our globetrotters. So where I'm going to explain where we actually do much of the execution, both those gentlemen, including myself, travel quite heavily throughout the United States, doing trade shows, visiting clients, making sales presentations, as well as doing the same outside the United States. The two gentlemen on the upper right, Daniel Clark. Daniel is our project manager and our supply chain individual. So if you have a major project that has, let's say, 50, 60 different tasks that have to be performed, Daniel is actually a project manager that keeps that organized, keeps everybody on task, and makes sure that the project is completed on time. Shane Reeder, which is in the upper right, he's our market intelligence researcher. So one of the first things that every company asks is there a market, and where's my market in the US? Shane is the one that will be putting together that market research report and doing all the detailed research that goes behind that as well. On the lower right is Pablo Cadiz and Rodrigo Rodrigo, and both of those gentlemen are in our Santiago office, Santiago, Chile, that is. And they work the South American market for us, doing the very same services that we provide here in the US. So what do we do? Well, we have really three silos depending on where the client needs. So on the very left side, one of the first things, especially if it's a new entry into the United States, they're basically looking to answer three questions. And the first question is there a market for my product or service here in the US? And being the largest economy in the world, usually that answer is yes. Maybe there's some adaptations to the product that has to be done, let's say 230 volt to 115 volt, something of this nature. But in fact, there is a market. The next question is probably a little bit more crucial, is how big is that market? And so that needs quite a bit of market intelligence. And as many of you do in your own countries, you're doing the market research to see if there is a market for that particular client. And then the third question is, if there's a large enough market, can our client and the entry be successful? We, being the largest economy in the world, it's probably one of the most competitive as well. Why is that? It's because every company wants to do business in the US. So we have availability to a wide range of products and services wherever they're located. And relatively, we have open borders. So we're not like Hong Kong where it's a free trade port. But then again, we are not closed like many countries are around the world either. And we do have trade agreements with multiple countries, and we have excellent relationships with our European, Canadian, and Asian partners as well, notwithstanding our trade war with China. So there is your basic groundwork. That moves into, once there are and other consulting companies, we actually like to execute. So we like to actually take that business plan, execute that plan, find the key markets, find the key customers, distributors, and we actually do quite a few trade shows, from pre-show marketing to pre-show organization to manning the trade show to post-show follow-up. And therefore, we have boots on the ground here in the US to actually develop those sales and sales opportunities. Once you have a sale, then you have all the logistic and administrative issues that you have to challenge, whether it's credit, logistics, movement, supply chain, whatever. And we can assess our client in all those aspects as well. And then finally, we move to the right, and many companies, European, non-European companies, have found you build a market or the market is large enough that you need a local presence, which means that you're setting up some type of a subsidiary, an office, a rep office, distribution center of some sort, and we can help with all those administration and all those legal and tax issues as well. Next slide. So what does that look like? Well, first of all, we start very similar to do the market analysis and the business planning formation, doing our market research. Shane will be doing most of that. That moves in our second phase, would be doing our basic marketing and branding. In today's COVID world, it's almost 100% digital marketing, very little face-to-face interaction. So you have most of your marketing is on the digital side. We have our virtual trade shows and trade shows that we have attended. We have attended medical trade shows in Las Vegas, in Chicago, the CMEX show, the COMEX consumer market, consumer products show is going on right now in Las Vegas. We have shows in Orlando, Miami, San Francisco, all through and of course, Chicago and Dallas. And that builds, you meet people, so you're building your distribution network. And eventually, some of our clients actually want us to be our brand ambassador. So we are the individual, we are their arm, their export arm, their business development arm, their sales arm here in the US or even North America, and also South America through our office in Santiago, that we are their America's ambassador to the Americas. Once we get going, we start doing much more high-level strategic planning that we can actually do. And then this moves into actually setting up third-party distribution centers or even that subsidiary. And we have helped companies from Russia through Europe and also Japan to actually set up companies here in the US. Our approach is very uniform. We work through all those processes. We build that business plan. We execute that. We interact with our executive management as well as the day-to-day individuals. By doing that, combining that, we like to establish very long relationships, actually know our clients just as well as they know themselves, to the point where most of our clients have been with us 5, 7 years, and we continue to do work. I have one client that I've been working with them for over 19 years. Our culture, this is a video that we put together during our COVID times. Our culture, we like to say, is that we're very team oriented. We have a lot of team play. We're not necessarily, one individual is responsible for one thing. We work together. We put together a video. I don't believe we have time for this video because it is 90 seconds. So if you have an opportunity, you can see it on our YouTube channel, but you can get a little taste of our culture. So let's give an example. And Anna, this is an example from Portugal. This is something that we really liked. We had a winery from Portugal that actually had a distributor on the West Coast in California. And they were the importer, and why they picked someone in California when Portugal is way on the east as opposed to someone on the east coast of the US. It's a long story, but they really were trying to build the market. And since we're based here in the middle part of the United States, they asked us to start building a market here in Illinois, around the Chicago area. So we put together a plan. We identified a few importers here in this area. We conducted a number of interviews. We went directly to some of the larger alcohol and retail chains. One of them is called Binny's. We performed some top line analysis. We actually met with sommeliers. We met with connoisseurs. We worked closely with Vino Portugal, which is the trade organization for wines from Portugal. And at the end of the day, they asked, the winery asked us to be their brand ambassador. And so we successfully expanded the distribution through the middle part of the US. Unfortunately, they had the wrong importer. And after a couple of years of working with it, building the market, we talked about this, Anna, it got to the point where they just did not have the capacity and the volume to actually support the market that we built. So just to sum it up, we have local presence with international experience. Everyone on our team has lived overseas. Every single one of our team is multilingual. And I believe all of us have studied overseas as well. So Daniel studied in Portugal. We have individuals that studied in Spain. We have David, who speaks Russian. We have Mike, who studied and lived in France, outside of Paris. And of course, all of us are well-traveled as well. So we know the international marketplace as well as being here, being Americans. You do have those boots on the ground with an international mindset. We have a comprehensive view of services from A to Z, from market entry to full immersion. And the way we actually do this is we would do it as a team, but we have dedicated resources for each particular client. So that client will know us and we will know them as well as we possibly can. Okay, so fundamentally, we put all the pieces together and we build that business. We're not necessarily the legal experts or the tax experts, but our job is to put all the pieces together and build that business for our client.